Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Ayer Finance Committee of Thursday, January 15th, 2026 at 6 p.m. in the Ayer Town Hall. This is a hybrid meeting. This meeting of the Finance Committee will be held in person at the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation via Zoom is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast, unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in a specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. This meeting will be live on Zoom. The public may access the proceedings by joining Zoom, meeting ID 978-772-8220, or by calling 929-205-6099. For additional meeting information about remote participation, please contact Carly Antonellis, Assistant Town Manager at atm@ayer.ma.us, or 978-772-8220, extension 100, prior to the meeting. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is to review and approve the meeting minutes from December 4th, 2025. Does anyone have any?
I thought they were quite nice.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next item on the agenda is committee updates. And you'll see in your packets, there's been 2 meetings so far this year. The first is the capital planning committee had it's actually second meeting, but the first big meeting where we talked about, started to talk about the capital projects, and specifically at that meeting, we talked about, can I take a look at your notes here?
Go for it.
I didn't have a copy.
Yeah, though.
Okay, so in the handouts that I gave to you, there is just a 1 page, and this is the major capital items that were presented so far in the last 2 meetings. So again, this is just, we looked at all the major items which are listed here, and then the last meeting, Dan from Department of Public Works did a presentation on the Department of Public Works specific capital items. Oh yeah, you do have a copy of that also. Okay. So nothing really. No big highlights except so far in the Public Works. They have, and again, with the Public Works, the sewer fund, there's major costs coming up there, but those are, remember, part of the sewer enterprise funds.
Mm-hmm.
Robert, is there anything else that you?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, so we are going to take, so capital is just reviewing the initial submissions, but just like with the budget, which we'll talk about in a moment, we have to take a really conservative view with capital. And so this sheet that the chair passed out is just what I would call the initial that's been passed out to capital. Now, we did meet with DPW. Next Thursday, we will meet with police, fire, and facilities. And then on the 29th, we will be meeting with parks. And then at that point, the committee will actually start to make recommendations on things. So for example, like the ambulance replacement, that would come out of the ambulance enterprise. The stormwater, the 230, that would be the stormwater enterprise. The committee is taking a very hard look at vehicle requests. So like, for example, the fire prevention vehicle requests, they have yet to present on Thursday. The Parks Department, I mean, not to get way ahead, but this beach house replacement, that's a placeholder. They're in the design phase, and not to get way ahead, but I don't believe this is going to be ready, and there's a lot of work to still be done. So what I'm just saying through the chair is this isn't like, oh, this has been approved and etched in stone. Trying to think just real quick, going down, and there are some other items. For example, in the Water Enterprise Fund, the PFAS media replacement for 175 and for 250,000. We're recommending that we actually use PFAS settlement money to pay for those. We're in a class action lawsuit for PFAS remediation, and to date, we've received about 1.8 million in settlement funds. The settlement funds have to be used for PFAS related projects and so forth. And so the DPW is recommending that we use some of that funding for these two PFAS related. The significance is that would reduce that impact to the Water Enterprise Fund, which the plan is to sort of mitigate any rates or rate increase on the water side. So I guess the takeaway is it's really early in the process, but we'll keep the FinCom up to date. If you go to the Capital webpage, there's all of the material, including the videos from the meetings. But this is definitely just the 50,000 foot starting point, and we have to sharpen the pencils and drill down.
Good. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you,
Your
Mr. Chair.
your memory is much better than mine. I think the other two things, just as far as capital, as far as this is concerned, is the West Main Street Bridge is actually going to, project is finally going to start. That was approved 2 years ago, and they're going to have a public meeting in a couple weeks where they're going to outline how they're going to be, I think they're going to close off one side of the road.
Yeah.
As they work on one side and everything. So that's a go. And then apparently the fire truck, the new ladder truck, is somewhere in the United States.
Yes, and it's expected to roll into Ayer, I can't say it like you did, in October.
Oh my God, October. Wow. Okay.
And that's one of the things, just on the ambulance, for example, there's almost a 3-year, it's like 2.5-year lead time on ordering the ambulances. That's why this ambulance replacement is presenting itself now, and I'm sure the chief will speak in detail on that next Thursday.
So let me just throw out, I mean, since I will be attending the next capital planning committee meeting, any observations I should bring back to them from our group?
Yeah, this list is way too long. I'm sorry. It's just way too long. There's way too many things on there.
Okay.
I just, part of the thing is like, for example, we're getting the fire truck delivered, right? Which we approved years ago.
Right.
And be like, great, so we'll approve a new ambulance this year, but we're not paying for it. So there's like, we tend to forget all the things that we still have to pay for. We okayed something, but we haven't even started paying for it. We haven't even borrowed the money. And I feel like there's a lot of that. Or more than I'm comfortable with anyway.
Yeah.
Like a bridge.
Well, yeah. So, but that was one of the things, that's...
Right. So
That's
it's
why I
great, we
brought
gotta
those
order
up.
it 3 years in advance, but what else do we have that we've okayed 3 years in advance that we still have to pay for?
Yeah.
Well,
So,
Sorry, the water comes out of the water rates, right? And the sewer comes out of the sewer rates.
right, well, I'll give you an update on the rate review committee, which is talks about water and sewer. So
that's my
circle
favorite
back.
committee.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's,
So all all the funds, the water, none of that money gets borrowed.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
If it
Definitely
does
get
through.
Oh,
water,
okay.
yeah.
See, there's
Yeah,
the sticking point. You say it comes out of the fund,
I don't
but
know, but how it's paid is different,
right, it's paid by the ratepayers, but it's still your ratepayer.
right? Yes, we're all ratepayers.
Yeah.
so we're still.
I'm not saying YOLO with borrowing money.
I'm just saying, like, that's. I know, it's infrastructure. It all needs to be updated and fixed. I totally understand it, but it isn't just paid by the rate. We still borrow the money and then say, hey, we need to set these rates based on what we need to pay back.
Right.
So it's the same thing, whether it's coming out of the enterprise fund or the general fund. In a way, we're still
Actually, I can
paying
show,
money.
when we look at the rate review, I'll show you an example of that, how that sort of flows through. Because yeah, it's good. But that's what you brought up about, again, this stuff, we approve it and doesn't come on board till another 2 or 3 years. That's one of we had Barbara do that presentation earlier this year on how the debt was flowing through
Mhm.
and how she was, when she does her projections, she does have a placeholder and take into account that, if you remember, the fire truck still has to be paid for.
Yep.
The bridge still has to be paid for, so she keeps a good track on that.
I would love to see how much debt is associated to each department.
Okay. Debt to department.
So when you say, with that, and so this is where what we'll touch on, is that it's debt service, in other words. So in other words, when we're figuring out, looking at the rate review and looking at general funds, the actual budgeted item that we have to be aware of is what's being paid is for debt service.
Yeah, but
So in other words, back to your point, okay, we approved the fire truck 2 years ago. It's just sitting out there. Now it's actually we'll be hitting the budget starting in October when we actually take the loan and pay for it. And now we have debt payments for the
yes.
fire truck.
And also, even from a even higher viewpoint, like, okay, we're asking for, each department is asking for this money. Okay, well, I see department XYZ, you have X number of $1 million we've borrowed for the department, or are about to borrow for the department, or are waiting for delivery. So, sorry, you're gonna have to take a break for a year or something. Like,
Well, DPW probably owns
I
a
know.
good chunk of it.
And I said, like, I know all this stuff needs to be fixed, but just as a way of, okay, how much are we asking for? Because there are limits to what we can all pay or afford. As much as we would all love to say, great, let's do it all. Let's make it, I would love to be like, yeah, we need all these things. Let's get all these things this year. But
Well, maybe you could. Maybe you borrow 10 million now and then don't borrow for 10 years.
So,
Things are only getting more expensive.
do you think that would work? So we would borrow $10 million and no departments would come for anything for 10 years?
I'm specifically talking about DPW.
Oh, so but DPW wouldn't come for anything for 10 years? They come for 2 trucks every year, or 3 trucks, or however many trucks every year. There would be no getting around it.
now Jim Pinard has
Oh,
made a very good observation, and I don't know if I know we're working on, is a list of all, actually I think it's,
We have
all
we have the DPW list, which we can get for you. We will have after Thursday, is a full, not that we haven't had it before, but all in one place, an entire vehicle inventory, because that is what I meant earlier when I was saying that capital is putting the magnifying glass on vehicles. And this is just what was submitted to capital. Every department has a right through the process to submit it from the beginning. This is from December 1st, but we have got to come way down.
and part of that idea
And we'll get to
was,
that too on the budget in a minute.
and part of that idea was, well, this department needs a truck, but this department over here has a truck, so maybe we can swap or
Yeah.
anything. So, and Jim's on capital planning's been very, because as he says, he goes, I buy trucks for my business all the time, so I'm quite sensitive to this.
And to your question, I will, through the chair, I will talk to Barbara and we'll put together what you were saying to see the debt service, the debt by all, just what you were saying.
Yeah, that's what I made a note
Yeah.
here. So by department debt, and that, so the current debt service, in other words, this is, we're
Yeah.
paying out of the budget X amount principal and interest. And then I think back to your original point, and this is what's out upcoming, this or still out. This, we have approved the fire truck, so that still hasn't turned from approval to debt service.
Just out of curiosity, if the truck is supposed to roll into town around like October, does that get on this upcoming fiscal year, next fiscal year? When do you start paying for it?
I think once we receive it, we have to start paying for it, so it would be FY '27.
I actually have a more interesting question. Looking at the projections, right? Talking about debt service.
Mm-hmm.
Like I see projected debt service. Is that like Dan actually projected what he's going to need for 10 years? Or is that just the like...
So if I could just, so you're looking at the rate review.
For anything.
Well, no, actually that was, let's go ahead and move to rate review because this is,
Sure.
this is a good exercise and so in front of us is the rate review report. Continue.
Well, I remember when I was on the rate review, right? You look at the model forecast a 2% decrease of use or revenue every year and an operating increase of at least 2% every year. So you have a 4% gap every year, which means your rates need to go up 4% every year to cover the difference. So, right, I'm looking at, so if you like take the sewer cash flow one, right, you can see the yellow over the top is the proposed debt service. Now, is that just, what am I looking at, 10 years?
26, yeah.
So is the, like, Dan went through every year and is like, I need to, here's what I need this, here's what I need then, because I feel like if not, then it's an underestimate.
So this is a model that, and I will allow myself to be corrected by Robert as I talk about this. This is a projection model that Barbara and Kimberly,
That's her name.
use for the water and cash flow. So they plug in the existing numbers, and then they plug in projections. So we are looking at FY 2027. So if you're looking at the sewer, the revenue, I'm looking at the sewer cash flow, the revenue covers all of the expenses. And this is the key here to what you're talking about. Eric, if you look at the columns that make it up, you see operating expense, existing debt service, and proposed debt service. So they do keep track of that. So I assume in 2028 they begin, 2027's our actual, that's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
And then from there, 2028 on, they do projections. But if you actually look at the capital spending report program we have, it actually will show the amounts through the years going out. So in other words, I think that on the sewer inflow, and correct me if I'm wrong, but inflow and infiltration repairs, 500,000 is actually pegged every year as a capital expense.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
And just to add to that, we contract and have with a company called Raftilis that works with Barbara, Dan, and Kimberly on this rate model. And like any rate model, it's a model. I think after year 5, a 5-year outlook, or as you were saying, Andrew, as you get further out, the level of assumptions are,
Well, I'll say what I said in that meeting,
yeah.
which is I agree with you. The 10 years is like totally pie in the sky, but
Yeah.
the trend is what you're looking at, right? And right
Right.
now we're in some pretty deep trouble, particularly in the water,
Mhm.
right?
Well, there's also, though, there's almost $5 million in retained earnings in water and about almost just over 4 million in sewer. So the committee is looking at using some of the retained earnings as we have in the past to balance the rate increase. If you go by that model, it would look at a 2% increase for water and 2.5% increase for sewer. But yes, I know what you're saying, that the line is close.
Well, I feel conflicted about those things, right? Because the problem with like, oh, we're going to buy down the rates this year is that, right, percentages are compounding, right? So you can end up with a non-linear issue if you buy down your rates. So I think you'd be better off buying down your debt, which is a linear problem as opposed to a rate increase. So for the rate review people on the thing, like if you got to increase the rate 8%, then you do what you have to do. But using retained earnings to buy yourself a year feels like a terrible idea.
Well, it's to balance it all out. An 8% water increase.
Yeah, it's made up.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
People will lose their minds.
Sure,
Yeah.
but if you don't,
I'm not arguing against
right,
you, just
right,
saying
it's
people will lose their minds.
the cost is the cost to a degree, right? Then
Right.
if it has to go up 8%, then we have to look at why it went up 8%.
Right.
But like, if it's got to go up 8, we go up 2. You're just kicking the can down the road and burning through your reserves for no reason.
Right. And the other thing, one of the key variables, and this is where capital is tied into rates on all enterprise funds, is the assumptions. Depending on what's approved for capital is a piece of what drives this as well. So there are assumptions made based on the 5-year capital plan. That doesn't mean, and I think this year is going to be a classic example, I think, in water and sewer, where that first sheet, that's not all going to come to fruition.
Yeah.
Sure.
So if we look at that water side, water cash flow and water fund balance, so from the meeting so far, what we're looking at doing, this projection assumes a 2% increase and a 2.5% increase. Now, what we requested that Barbara's going to do is she's going to redo this projection, but with a 1.5% increase in rates and using 500,000 from retained earnings. Okay. So, and we'll see how that affects this flow, because I think part of the balancing act the rate review is looking at is keeping rate increases level or low. But Andrew, I have to admit, I saw what I think you're looking at is that boom right into 2028.
You brought it up at the meeting, Kurt.
Yeah. We're starting to go below, and
Well, the sewer one looks like a much more healthy
yeah.
situation that looks like you can fix it, right? There's a decrease in revenue in water in 27.
So on that point, that's a good point that came up. So one of the problems with water, as you know, we've talked about it before, is when we went to the PFAS treatment. With the PFAS treatment, everything was working, and then there was a decrease in output. And so we have to build that clear well you've heard us talk about. And the clear well, because the clear well was not online, some of the large commercial users and so forth, water revenue, water consumption is down. That's that dip you see there. Now the clear well is supposed to go online the late spring, early summer. It's almost done. And the hope is, the plan is once the clear well is online, production will be back up. So there's an example. I agree, like even in the model of last year or at least 2 years ago, that wasn't even a variable. So that is why water is down.
Oh my God! You know what? I know we talked about at the rate review the fact that we had decreased revenue, and I just didn't put 2 and 2 together. The fact that there's a dip in revenue line. So
I don't understand why we don't. So if we have what did you say, like $6 million in retained earnings
About-
in water?
About, water, I think, is about
4.5 in water.
4.5,
Okay.
and sewer's just about 5. Yeah.
Okay, so 4.5.
Mhm.
As an example, why don't we, instead of borrowing $500,000 for inflow infiltration repairs, take $500,000
Mhm.
and out of this retained earnings and pay for it?
That's the current, that's the,
That's on the,
was the suggestion from the last rate review meeting.
yeah.
But I don't know that we need to do that just to keep rates low. Like, I think to Andrew's point, we need to have
Mhm.
rates increases at a point where this is all sustainable and
Mhm.
we don't get to a point where it's like, well, water went up 15% this year.
Mhm.
Like, we don't want that.
And we spent all our reserves buying down the rates.
Okay.
But like, to mitigate some of that, it's always cheaper to pay for something now
Mhm.
than to borrow, regardless of whatever fancy math there is that shows interest rates and arbitrage and blah blah blah. If you can pay for something today, it's cheaper than paying for it over 10 years.
I don't know. This is maybe an off-topic, but adjacent question. Is the reason we don't put inflow and infiltration just in the omnibus budget? It's borrowing every year.
Well, there's several reasons. One is it's considered capital as opposed to operating. Also, it's the I&I it's under the sewer enterprise fund as opposed to the general omnibus budget.
Okay, got it.
Mhm. Yeah, it's part of, yeah. So I'm glad I threw this out because the feeling from the rate review was, boy, we every year we ask for 2.5%, but what I'm hearing is water is what it is. We have the PFAS problem. We have an expensive water system, so we might as well keep up with it by keeping with a 2% rate increase.
I would say look at 1.5, 2, 2.5, and 3, and buying $500,000 back.
So the original this
Sorry, Barbara.
projection is that for the water only was 2%. That's what that is, and then the one scenario she's going to run is 1.5% and 500,000 from retained earnings. So what I'm hearing is maybe just keep it at 2%.
Because in a way, I know, like, that's partly how we're in the situation we're in. We have that over years, the decisions weren't made to, like, say, keep up with things or whatever. So Dan now is like I have tens of millions of dollars of fixes to do.
I feel bad for the guy.
Right. It's not. He's not like, I want this, to look pretty with flowers. These are things that need to be done.
Yeah.
So I think in a way, there's facing that reality of, it can either be painful now or extremely painful later.
Yeah.
And it's.
He always uses the culverts as an example, right? Like fixing a culvert's a lot easier than after it breaks and you have to totally replace everything, right? So,
Well, that leads into we're not going to do is that's why we now have the stormwater fund, because part of the purpose of the stormwater, keeping the stormwater system up to date, is that does not enough. So the stormwater doesn't go into the sewer and bust up the sewer pipe, raise the sewer price.
I'm going to channel my inner Eric and expect that the budget has gone down accordingly to cover my increased water rates. It's my future note.
Well, I think that's part of the balancing act going on with the rate review and stuff. So, but no, I will take that back to the rate review then. And then now the sewer looks a little bit
Sure, you want to kick that can down the road? That looks much more tenable.
yeah. So,
Right. I think for water, I think you actually need to play the game with projections of like look at doing, 2 to 5% plus whatever options you have of spending some money. Maybe in like 1%.
This budget doesn't consider the Clearwell coming online.
Correct.
So that's not in this forecast.
Right, so that dip, what the dip that we're talking about was caused by this PFAS thing.
Yep.
The Kimberly and Dan, the plan is once the Clearwell will correct the production issue, and hence the flow, no pun intended, of revenue should increase.
So then, I think from what you're saying, this dip right here, that then continues to increase at this smaller pace, should in a way actually go up a bit first and then continue at the whatever
there should be an adjustment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you'll see a reverse dip.
Mhm.
That's what I don't want to say that, but that's what the plan is. Yeah.
And when Barbara did her presentation, I was under the impression that when we have a surplus of cash, she applies that, or the town applies it against these capital projects and pays them down. Is that, did I
Correct.
misunderstand?
Yeah.
So in essence, isn't that what you're doing when we have that surplus cash?
Yes.
What Eric and
Yes, the question is what, as you know, yes, is the simple answer. But what we're looking at is pushing that a little further. In other words, it's been a very conservative.
item?
Is there more we can do on the capital front
Okay.
for these enterprise funds?
Got it.
okay, all right, good stuff. So let's continue on our agenda here, and the next item is Robert is going to give us an update on where we are in the 2027 budget, and then also give us a presentation on the administration department part of the budget.
All right. Thank you. Gentlemen, good evening. So the first thing is tomorrow you will get, I will send to you, it'll also be in the board packet, you'll get draft 1 of the budget, which is due tomorrow. Had really been pushing to try to get it here for tonight. There's just some final things, but we'll talk about a high level on that, but you will have draft 1 tomorrow. So just to show you sort of where we're at. You've seen this slide before when I came to the finance committee, that I'm not going to rehash from my perfect storm presentation, but we are in a perfect storm in the sense that it's going to be a tight budget year, not only for Ayer, but for a lot of other places. But just to recap, is the FY26 omnibus budget was about 20 million for the sake of discussion. That was a 5.9% increase. The average increase of the omnibus budget over the last 10 years has been about 5.2%. We've got to get back to 5 and below 5 in terms of sustainability. So one of the targets is that the omnibus budget does not, for FY27, add a maximum increases by 5%. If that happened, increasing the budget by 5% would be $1 million in additional funding. However, and the situation has changed, is all of these drivers, and we'll talk just briefly about health insurance in the schools, because the health insurance situation has actually gone from 20% to 25%. You can see health insurance alone, we're still anticipating 25% increase, and we won't know the rates until the end of February or March. That's why we asked for some reduction scenarios to plan for that. Additionally, the Ayer Shirley Regional School District and the town of Shirley also have Maya. Health insurance is crushing every municipal entity in Massachusetts. I'll show you, let me show you where we're at. So those are the drivers. So on November 12th is when, after it come to the FinCom with the department heads, is looking at what are the budget drivers. So health insurance, at that time we were looking at 20%, the debt service at 283, union contract obligations, that's what is already agreed in contracts is the impact. That doesn't include the clerical contract that's up, non-union contract obligations, fixed operating costs, and then the school assessment, specifically the Ayer Shirley one. That is just an assumption of that would if the school assessment goes up 5%, it'd be approximately a $765,000 increase. The school assessment in my time that I've been here has ranged anywhere on the low side for Ayer around 3 to 4%, and all the way up to 9%. Not to speak for the school committee, because mark your calendars, February 3rd is the joint meeting of the FinCom and the Select Board with the schools are coming down. They have been saying that it's going to be a double-digit assessment increase, which we'll get to in a moment. When we move forward to December, the health insurance situation, we had a 20% placeholder. Our Meyer rep and so forth was saying you really need to be around 22 to 25%. And now we're really hoping that that number comes in at 20% or lower. But in draft one of the budget, we have a 25% placeholder there. On the debt service, we've made significant progress, not to get way ahead, but we're down from 283,000 down to 119,000. We continue to review and work on that. The contract obligations, again, we're on both the union and non-union. We're now doing the deep dive with all of the all of the pay rate reviews. The clerical negotiations are underway. The fixed costs have still held at that because fuel is looking favorable, and most of our energy contracts are locked in right now. The school piece should really be a huge question mark, but I put a placeholder in there. And the Neshoba Valley Technical High School, which I sent to all of you that are invited to the budget breakfast on February 5th, we're looking at about $100,000 increase because we have more students there. However, that's just a placeholder, that 100,000, hoping that would come down maybe more to the 80 to the 90. So we made a little bit of progress on the driver front. So the omnibus budget that you're going to see, and this is just draft one, that you're going to see tomorrow, will be issued on January 16th. January spelled wrong, sorry. It assumes a level service budget. In other words, we ask for three scenarios: a level service, a level funded, and a 10% reduction. It's basically a level service budget at this point as a starting point. There are adjustments. It currently maintains all of the FY26 staffing levels with no new positions. It assumes a 25% health insurance increase. It doesn't include the clerical contract costs because the negotiations are underway. It includes some of the costs on the non-union personnel contracts. There are 3 of them that are wrapping up. It does not include any non-union COLA cost. Per the town's financial policies, a recommendation is made to the select board. In this case, it'll be February 17th, and it's subject to whatever the select board, if they adopt the recommendation, it's subject to town meeting approval. So all of that in a nutshell, draft 1 increases the FY26 budget by just over 1.2 million or 6.4%. So we're about over, now this is already changed, I'll get to in a second, but we're over about 284,000 for our target. So again, there's the omnibus, was 20 million roughly last year. Our target is 21,029,408. That's a maximum of 5%. Like to obviously try to get below that. Right now with the level service budget, when it came in, it's still over. Now since that, we've looked at, this was about a week ago, up until, that's why it's coming out tomorrow, there have been further reductions. I anticipate that
don't hold me to this, but I think that for tomorrow, that draft one will come in at about 5.5%, which is just about 0.5% over the target. So we still have more work to do. That's assuming that health insurance doesn't go up beyond 25%, and the school remains a variable. So what's missing, or what we don't have yet in the process, the clerical contract costs to be determined, the non-union contracts to be determined. If a non-union COLA that has been done historically, that's for all the non-union folks, the call firefighters, and the stipends, elected stipends, that'd be about 50,000. There is no COLA in draft one of the budget. So if you add, when I said we're 284 over, we're about 364 at this time. You factor in, that's assuming there would be a COLA. We're not there yet. And that is about, not between the clerical contract and the non-union, maybe another 30,000 based on past. But I don't want to, because the negotiations is underway. So what are we gonna, what's up next? So tomorrow you'll get draft one. It will be available just for the public on the town's website and in the board packet. I'm anticipating, as I told you, it to be around a 5.5% increase, which is okay for a draft one. We've submitted draft ones in previous years, much, much higher percentages, but we're trying to really focus this down because draft two right now we've got to reach that target, which we will. Draft two is going to be submitted, and the reason it's not in the budget calendar is once we have the health insurance rates, which is the end of February, beginning of March, we're really hoping at end of February, and the school assessments, which we will have Neshoba on February 5th, Ayer Shirley Regional School District, at least when they come here on the 3rd, will have an initial, we'll have enough more information to further shape this. So the key benchmarks coming up February 3rd with the FinCom Select Board is the budget presentation from the Ayer Shirley schools. Neshoba Valley Tech, the budget breakfast is on the 5th if you can make it. If you can't, once I get that on the 5th, we'll send it to the FinCom as I do every year, so we'll have that number. The February 17th will be the COLA recommendation, which there's a whole process set forth in FinCom on that financial policies. The health insurance rates end of February, early March. And then the public budget presentation, which is a joint meeting of the Select Board and the FinCom, all of the departments, is scheduled per the calendar for March 25th at 6 p.m. Any questions on draft one? I know that's just a quick overview. The chair really asked me to come to just briefly talk about some of the administration budgets, but I wanted to. So you'll get draft one. Be happy to come back. I'm going to do a similar overview on Tuesday night for the select board, and we'd be happy to come back to further discuss because there's still a lot of work to be done. Because I will say this: we can only we have to plan for the future, and we're dealing in real time. But the reality is the health insurance and the school situation, it would be awesome if it was more like the PFAS water issue. It's not going to be just an FY27 problem. It's going to be an FY28 and probably FY29 problem. So we've got to tighten up and bring down this budget, and there's going to be some pain and some tough decisions involved with that, because the other piece is the taxpayers, I've said this to the departments, the taxpayers that foot the bill for this are hurting and are experiencing all kinds of pressure. And the health insurance system, in my opinion, on the municipal level is broken, and it's up to the federal government and the state need to do something, but based on the current situation. So I know you gentlemen can appreciate that. I just want to say, we're not just, I wish it was just, we're going to have a problem this year. But, so real quick, the real reason, and I thank you, Mr. Chair, for letting me do that.
is about the administration budget. So specifically, I'm going to talk about the budgets for the select board, town council, management support, and general insurance. When we say administrative budgets, I mean, ultimately, I'm responsible for the administration of the entire budget with the department heads and boards and committees. But we'll just take a quick look. So this is the select board budget as you're going to see it in draft 1 tomorrow right now. So,
Ron, if I could so you've now changed your hat. You're now doing a
Yes.
presentation.
Yeah, I'm off.
on the
just on
the
a
town administration part of the
Yes,
budget.
yeah. So part one that and I'll send you these slides and put it to your website. The first piece is I just felt where draft 1 is coming out, wanted to hit upon that. So the select board budget, the salary line contains the town manager and assistant town manager. We both have personal service contracts that are on the town website under the select board under contracts, and it includes the select board stipends. So the increase, the 14,192 is the contractual increase, and that's with no COLA in it. The wage line covered what was a full-time department administrative position that was in the office. In light of the situation that we're in, we're proposing reducing that position to 30 hours from 40 to 30, and that would be the savings on that front. And then the service and supply lines and the expense lines are all level funded. And right now that sits at a decrease from last year, just shy of 1%. Now, depending on how, as we move through this process, that wage may come down even further. Town council budget line item. So the town council services the whole town. It's under my office more for coordination and cost controls, because before I came, it was a free-for-all and there was issues. So it was at $85,000 for FY26. This is a tricky budget in the sense, if I had a crystal ball, we never know who's going to take legal action against the town or what's going to happen. So we do our best based on historic trends. In my time here, it's been as low as, when I first came here, town council budget was about $315,000, and we're involved in all kinds of huge, it was big, much higher. So the average, so it was $85,000 last year. There have been times, as you know, I've come before you needing a reserve fund transfer, small ones, because things have come up that we had no way of knowing that tipped us into that. Right now, we're still running strong. I know we still have to get through the second half of the fiscal year, so hopefully no RFT. And the key piece, I think at this time, would be best to level fund it. Town council is increasing their hourly rates by $10 an hour on July 1st, and you're going to see this throughout. The other challenge we have within the budget is costs are going up on everybody to some extent. I mean, that's modest. That's not real concern. Also, significant property enforcement matters have been resolved at FY26. We had a huge case, which I know you're familiar with, involving some property and animal enforcement. That's all been resolved. So based on, knock on linoleum, right now we're looking at putting forth in draft 1 level fund. Now, if we have to reduce that, we can reduce that. The trade-off becomes, are we going to run, it'll be less legal services and so forth. And the big driver of this budget is always the unforeseen, lawsuits and so forth. So that's where we're at with town council for right now. So then management support. So you'll see in the budget there's a series of lines called management support, and this one I wanted to offer some more definition of what is under management support. So the first item under management support, the wages. We have a full-time administrative coordinator that provides full administrative support to the building department, to the planning board and town planner, and to the board of health, and I will say provides excellent support to the town. That position is in the union, so the union contract negotiations are underway. That increase that you see, that is a contractual step that we know of. That line will most likely increase slightly depending on the negotiations. The overtime line, we've level funded that. Right now, this is for overtime for this position that has always been very helpful and willing to cover meetings and other tasks that would be subject to overtime. Then the next line, the management support services for $50,000, which is level funded. So what's in that? That contains the ClearGov budget book platform. So that's the program we use both for the capital planning and for the budget book. That fee is in there. All of the town meeting warrant printing, and I'm going to talk as I do often many years, to the board about this. We print the full warrants for all town meetings and mail them. Printing costs have gone up in the last 5 years and continue to go way up. It's a trade-off, right? On one hand, we send out 4,200 roughly warrants to every household before town meeting, so everybody has all the information, is informed. Some towns just send like a postcard and say, you can get the warrant here or so forth. The board in previous years, and Carly's done an analysis on this, which we can share with you in previous years, we need to update it, is do we continue the level of, printing? The general code platform, so when you go to the town website and it says bylaws and you click on there, the general code platform is the agreement that organizes all of the code, because our bylaws were a disaster before general code, and now you can do an itemized search and so forth. And then the town report, which is required by state law, that's the book every year. That again is the printing cost. So I know that the $50,000, a good half of that is probably all printing and so forth in there. So something we are going to be looking at as we move forward. For right now, in draft one, just level funded it. The supply line, that's the $4,500, is all of the copy paper in the copy room that's used by the town, the copy machine service contract, and toner, not only for the copy machine, but toner for some of the town printers and so forth. The increase, I know 80%, the $2,000 increase was recommended by Barbara and the town accountant based on toner costs and the increases of costs here. Because last year we had $2,500 and they just made it without having to do a RFT. Again, something we'll look at. And then management support expenses, $6,000, that's level funded. That, the last line on the bottom, that contains all of the legal advertising that the town has to do, legal notices for postage. So with the zoning board of appeals, for example, has something that we're required by law to notify all of the abutters. And then election and town meeting signage from the town clerk's office. That's the smallest amount. The big piece is the legal advertising and the legal notice and postage. In most towns, we still have to advertise for certain things under statute in the newspaper, and those ads are not cheap. So I'm glad that the chair had asked on this, because this line often gets not looked at, and people over the years have asked sometimes at town meeting, okay, well, not the top line, not the position, but what else is in that line? So right now, this budget, there's a slight increase at this point, but again, I think we're really looking at that $50,000 number in terms of printing costs and so forth. I think this is the last one. So general insurance. So of course any town has to have insurance. This line item is overseen by the assistant town manager. The first line is our workers' comp, which there's a 5% placeholder. The frustrating part with this budget is we don't get these rates until the end of February or March, just like the health insurance. But we try to put a placeholder that represents, I would say, the maximum. So workers' comp, there's that 5% placeholder. That would be the maximum. We're hoping that will come down slightly because, based on our claims history. Then the fire police liability insurance, that's when you hear us talk about the 111F. This is the insurance that covers police and fire. Again, similar thing, there's a placeholder for 5% at this point. The good news this year, which will be the first year for what it's worth, is the our fire insurance and causality insurance, it's level funded. We're in a rate lock-in that Carly was able to negotiate, and so we're locked in, I believe, not just this year, but I think next year and the year after. Still a significant amount at $182,000, but no increase. That line some years has increased by anywhere from 5 to 12%. So again, a slight increase, but that increase hopefully could come down. So those are sort of, that was it. So that's sort of just a snapshot at some of what we'll call sort of the administrative budgets in the omnibus. So if there's any questions, and we'll definitely can revisit when we have the full budget. The other ones I just didn't put up here, just so you know, you'll see in the omnibus. There's the postage machine, which there's a slight increase because postal rates went up. That's overseen by the town accountant, and that's by code, by department, so it's not a free-for-all. And then the other one, parking tickets. There's about $1,000 is the service that we use for parking tickets. Up until COVID, we brought in about anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 a year from parking ticket revenue. Then COVID came, and there were none, and then very little. But now we're seeing an uptick again. I think the chief has for, not to balance the budget or anything, but the $1,000 is for the service. I didn't make a slide for those two, but you'll see that in the budget. It's level funded parking tickets, and postage. There's a slight increase because the rates, it matches the rates that went up. So are there any questions? And I will get you this presentation and put it on the website, because I just finished it up right before the meeting.
So with the printing of the warrant and the town report, do you have any idea, like, if we didn't print them all and we had them essentially just available digitally, how much that might save? 10,000, 4,000?
No, I think it could save probably about 10,000. Because the printing cost. So like the warrant, you've got the printing of the warrant. That's a big one, and that's for all the town meetings. That's for the annual in the fall. The town report, that's another one. And I think we're moving. I don't know. Some people like the hard copy. I hear what you're saying, and
I'm just wondering.
No, and when we're in tight times as we move forward, we have to look at it. I know a lot of towns do, like where I live in Dunstable, you get a postcard that says when the town meeting is, and please go to this website, and you can pick up hard copies upon request wherever.
Like town hall or
Yeah,
whatnot.
yeah.
I was just gonna ask, is there a means of asking people to opt out from paper versus virtual? Is that a consideration?
That's an interesting idea, Bob.
I like that one.
I never thought
Certainly
of
as
that.
at least a first step.
Yeah.
I feel like
Mhm.
all the research I've done on it, which is like it's partially an access issue, right?
Mhm.
Like low-income people normally don't have the same resources, digital resources as other people.
Mm-hmm.
It is the modern era, but
Yeah.
Right.
mailing a warrant to someone makes a difference. Optic. I mean, there are how many people live in town, and then
So there's about
150 people show up
right.
at
So
town
I was
meeting.
just gonna say there's about, don't hold me to this, I think there's about 4,200 what we'll call households. So there's a formal list. So we send out about 4,200
Oh my
warrants,
gosh. Wow.
of which, to your point, the average turnout at a town meeting is about 100 to 150 average.
Right.
Let me look into that, Bob, about an opt-out, because from what I understand, before I came, there was a town government study committee that looked at ways, how can we get people more involved in all type. And one of the recommendations that came out of this, and it was probably in the year 2000, so we're talking 25 years ago, costs were a lot different, is if we mailed the warrant to everybody, everybody would, in full transparency, everybody would have it. Now the law is, the legal requirement is after the select board approves the warrant, it needs to be posted in each, it needs to be posted at town hall and in each of the voting precincts. Now, we post it in 10 locations, the post office here, that's the only, there is no legal requirement to mail the warrant or so forth, because people have asked that too.
The only argument I would make about, and I really do like the opt-in thing about,
we'll
you know,
look into
like
that.
people saying, you know, like, is, it's not being kept from you. Like having physical copies available to you, can go seek it out. You don't have to get online. You don't have to be you know, an experienced coder to be able to find the town warrant.
Mhm.
If you know,
Right.
it doesn't have to be spoon-fed to you.
We're pro-town engagement, right? Maybe if one person shows up, it was worth it.
Yeah.
In theory, I love that we mail it out to everyone. I think it's fantastic.
I read it
Yeah,
every time.
I come with it.
Yeah, me
Notes
too.
in there.
Right, and I think the issue, because we've talked about it before, lastly on this, is the question that comes up is this a budget buster? Obviously, it's not a budget buster, but there's no, this line, I'd have to look, and I meant to have read it, this line was not at that level, you know, not that long ago. It's just the issue of the costs. And same, so the town report as well, similar thing. The only legal requirement is that we produce an annual report that's accessible to the people, defined as, you know, a copy on file with the town clerk, and we send a copy to the state. We don't have to print them, we always have, and we've cut down on the number of those that we printed because it is available electronically. So, but I like that opt-out. If there's a way to do that, that would be good, because then it gives people a choice, you know, opt-out, opt-in.
Ironically,
Yeah.
every meeting,
Yes, right.
and, you know, with the advent of
Yeah.
the computer and the ability for virtual
Yeah.
meetings, I find it ironic that we print more paper now than we probably did before because of the ease of doing it.
Mhm.
So,
Yep.
you know, just, I know it is a small part of the budget, but what did Benjamin Franklin say?
Yeah.
Just keep counting pennies and the dollars will take care of themselves.
It's
Is that
true. Yeah.
right? So,
And
We should bring back the mimeograph
there
and
you
see
go.
how much
There
paper
you
we
go.
And other boards have gone
Too
over.
hard, you too hard
Yeah.
to make copies, so you don't do
So
it.
now you know every time you get paper, at least you know it's coming out of management support supplies account 54,000.
And I have to admit, it's easier for me to read paper than
Yeah.
online. I have a short attention span, so
Approved
if I get
fact.
through the first two sentences, I'm doing well.
I think it also is not our age specifically, but everyone in here grew up
Right.
always using this. I think my kids have a much easier time doing everything and just in reading on the screen without it, you know, whatever, you know. Whereas I'm like, yeah, I'll just print it out and read it.
The planning board went full digital. Because they had, you get plans and all sorts of, like, the paper, and that is huge.
Yeah.
So,
One other thing I want to look at on the printing is, I want to talk to Neshoba Tech, because they have a print trade, the vocational school. Is there an opportunity that they could potentially do some printing for us? It would be potentially cheaper, and it would be good for the students. So, but I like that opt-out, so we'll keep you posted on the printing front. But it's not cheap, and neither is the advertising. Governor Baker tried to get legal advertising in the newspapers out in the Massachusetts modernization bill. And I think that the last of the media lobby convinced the legislature to keep it in.
It is interesting because I know Samantha has to mail
Yes.
those things out, and she'll be like, I put it in this newspaper
Yes.
or this newspaper because people need to be able to get it. I'm like, what's the circulation? Like, what how many people does that actually reach?
Right, and it's state law. It drives all the towns crazy. It's required.
I don't get the little sun.
No.
Yeah, that's
There's
the
a-
ironic part is which
Yeah.
newspaper do we even get in town?
And I can't, there's another one too. I'm like, what? How many? And they're expensive if you get a newspaper subscription. It's not what it used to be.
Right.
Oh God, someone shoot me.
Okay.
Let's rolling forward. Thank you, Robert, and
Yes, thank you, gentlemen, and if you have any
thank you
questions.
for that
Yeah.
detail there, because it just
Yep.
gets me warmed up to look at the rest of the budget. So,
Public input?
oh yes.
Is anyone online?
There's nobody online.
Oh.
So, okay. Schedule next meeting. If you note, I have a calendar, updated calendar for us. So when we walk through that. So our next meeting, we're going to do a third meeting. Well, just a second meeting. Usually our meetings are first and third, and by virtue of the calendar, we've got another Thursday in January. So we're going to have a meeting on January 29th, and that's where we will take the first good look at the whole budget. Okay. And then February 3rd, Tuesday, we have a joint meeting with the select board so that the Ayer Shirley can just do one presentation.
Sure.
The school district. And then February 5th will be our first meeting in February, and that's where the fire department and ambulance will make their presentation. And then there's the next 3 meetings, second one in February, the 2 in March, are just placeholders right now, and we've got Public Works, Police Department, and the Neshoba Valley Tech. What Robert helped me put this together with the joint meetings. So Robert, what I was going to do, suggested today, was I will contact Dr. Pigeon and see which of, if she can make either the 19th of February, 5th of March, or 19th of March. Would that test out?
Yeah, and I think wherever,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, wherever she can make it, then we can
Okay.
adjust our people accordingly.
Right, so then we'll have her say which of those 3 meetings that she can make, and then I'll schedule Public Works and Police Department for the next 2 meetings. And then on the March 25th is the public forum with this, again, joint with the select board. And then April 2nd, we review, vote on warrant articles. April 7th, select board, and then we have our regular scheduled meeting on April 16th. We'll see where we are then, and then town meeting on the 27th. So
Mr.
we're
Chair, I'll
off
just
to the
say-
races.
Depending on where we're at, as this committee knows, historically, sometimes the April 7th, has been a joint meeting as well. I know, I do like how
Oh.
you have it, I like how you have it separate for April 2nd, but I'm just saying, if for some reason, we need to also use April 7th with the select board, we could. I like how you have it, that the FinCom will do its stuff on the 2nd.
Right, because that's what
Yeah.
we've historically.
But I'm just
done,
putting
yeah.
that out there, if there's a wrinkle or something, you're always welcome.
Oh, well, I mean, because then technically on the 7th, I present to the
Right.
select board
Correct.
the result of our April 2nd vote.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, any notes or observations or corrections on this calendar?
I like it.
Let's do it.
Okay. And,
Thank you for putting that together.
And then the other thing I just wanted to throw out, Robert, before I forget, so we still have to make the free cash
Mm-hmm.
allotment.
Yep.
And when is that? When are we going to do this? Because I was thinking I'll add this to the calendar. And we've got like,
Why don't, we could do that as part of the January 29th review,
oh,
okay? And then what I'm thinking is on April 2nd, because almost the use of all of the free cash is tied into warrant articles, on the 2nd, we could also review when you approve. But we would be ready on the 29th.
okay, we could do an
Yeah, to be-
initial
Initially, can be initial, right?
to say this is, and we've got about 2.5 million, I think, in free cash.
We got 2.9.
2.9 million. Okay, so that's what I'm gonna add. So that's gonna be I'll add that to the agenda for January 29th then. Okay, I think anything else? Okay,
I have nothing. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn, I guess.
I'll second. Why not?
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned as of 7:11.